Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our session on the Comprehensive Guide to Audit Sampling. Today, we will explore the key principles, various methods, and processes involved in audit sampling, along with practical insights to help you conduct more effective audits. Whether you're new to auditing or looking to deepen your understanding, this guide aims to equip you with the knowledge and tools you need for success. Let's dive in. Audit sampling involves applying audit tests to only a portion of the total population, rather than examining every single item. This approach allows auditors to draw conclusions about the entire group based on the selected sample. The reason we use sampling is mainly practicality and efficiency. When dealing with large volumes of data or when testing every item would be too costly or time-consuming, sampling becomes a valuable tool. By using sampling, auditors can still collect enough reliable evidence to support their findings, all while keeping the audit process both effective and efficient. Audit sampling is fundamental because it helps us gain reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free from significant errors or misstatements. Rather than examining every single transaction, sampling allows auditors to focus their efforts on a representative subset of data, which makes the audit process much more efficient. This approach strikes a crucial balance between accuracy and practicality, enabling us to draw reliable conclusions without having to review every detail exhaustively. Ultimately, the goal of sampling is to give auditors a solid foundation to make informed judgments about the entire population of data. When we talk about types of audit sampling, there are two main approaches to understand: statistical sampling and non-statistical sampling. Statistical sampling involves using probability theory to choose and assess the samples. This method is powerful because it allows us to quantify the risk associated with sampling, giving us a clear measure of how confident we can be in our results. On the other hand, non-statistical sampling depends more heavily on the auditor's professional judgment. Instead of relying on formal statistical calculations, the auditor makes decisions based on experience and intuition to select samples. Both methods have their place, but understanding the distinction is key to applying the right approach in different audit scenarios. Now, let's talk about some common statistical sampling methods. First, we have random sampling. This method involves selecting items completely by chance, so every item in the population has an equal opportunity to be chosen. It's great for ensuring unbiased representation. Next is systematic sampling. Here, we select every nth item from a list or sequence. This approach helps us cover the entire population evenly, making sure we don't miss any sections. Finally, there's monetary unit sampling. This method focuses on the monetary value of items, meaning higher value items have a greater chance of being selected. It's particularly useful when we want to pay special attention to items that could have a bigger financial impact. Now let's look at non-statistical sampling methods. The first one is directed sampling. This involves selecting specific items based on the auditor's judgment or focusing on areas where risks have been identified. It allows the auditor to target the review where it's most needed, rather than relying on random selection. The second method is haphazard sampling. Here, items are chosen without any formal structure or pattern, but the aim is to avoid any deliberate bias. While these methods don't give us a clear measure of sampling risk, they can still be quite effective, especially when combined with the auditor's experience and professional knowledge. This blend helps ensure a thorough and thoughtful approach to sampling. Let's walk through the audit sampling process step by step. First, we need to clearly define our objective and identify the population we're working with. This means understanding what we're trying to achieve and the entire group from which we'll be sampling. Next, we determine the unit of sampling, which is essentially deciding the individual items or transactions that we'll be examining within that population. After that, we select the sampling method that best suits our audit goals, whether that's statistical or non-statistical sampling. Then, we establish the appropriate sample size to ensure our results are reliable and representative. Finally, we select the actual sample items and apply the audit procedures to those items. We evaluate the results from this sample and then project those findings back to the population to draw meaningful conclusions. This structured approach helps ensure our audit is both effective and efficient. When determining the appropriate sample size for an audit, several key factors come into play. First, the level of risk tolerance is crucial. If we want to keep the acceptable risk lower, we naturally need to increase the sample size to gain more assurance. Next, the size of the population matters. Generally, a larger population means we might need a bigger sample, or we adjust the sample size proportionally to ensure it remains representative. Then we consider the expected error rates. If we anticipate a higher rate of misstatements, it's important to increase the sample size so we can effectively detect those issues. Alongside this, the desired confidence level plays a significant role. Seeking greater assurance requires us to examine more samples. Ultimately, auditors need to balance all these factors carefully: risk tolerance, population size, expected errors, and confidence level to find the right sample size that manages audit risk while maintaining efficiency. When determining sample size, one common approach is using statistical formulas. These formulas take into account factors like tolerable error, expected error, the confidence level we want to achieve, and specific characteristics of the population we're studying. This helps us calculate a sample size that is scientifically sound. At the same time, professional judgment plays a crucial role. Experienced auditors consider their past audits, the risks involved, and what is deemed acceptable error to make informed decisions on sample sizing. This ensures practical and relevant application of the sample size. Ultimately, both these methods aim to make sure our samples are truly representative of the larger population. This is essential because it allows us to draw reliable and valid conclusions from our audits with confidence. On this slide, we focus on two main types of errors that can occur during audit sampling. First, there's sampling risk. This happens when the sample we select isn't truly representative of the entire population, which can lead us to draw the wrong conclusions about the data. Essentially, even if our process is sound, we might get unlucky with the sample we pick. The second type is non-sampling risk. This involves errors not related to the sample itself, but rather mistakes made by the auditor. These can be due to poor judgment, incorrectly applying audit procedures, or using inaccurate data. Both types of risk are important to manage carefully to ensure the audit results are reliable. When it comes to measuring and managing sampling risks, auditors rely on several key strategies. First, they use statistical tools like confidence intervals and tolerable error limits to quantify the risk involved in sampling. This helps in understanding how much uncertainty is acceptable in their audit conclusions. Second, comprehensive training of audit personnel is essential. Well-trained auditors are better equipped to recognize and address potential risks. Third, the use of robust audit methodologies and controls ensures that the audit process is systematic and consistent, reducing the chance of mistakes. Finally, regular supervision and review of audit procedures provide an additional layer of quality control, catching errors before they impact the final results. Together, these measures help minimize errors and significantly increase the reliability of the audit outcomes. Here we have two practical examples of audit sampling. First is monetary unit sampling, where we select individual monetary units at random. This approach focuses more on higher value transactions, making it especially effective for spotting overstatements in financial records. The second method is haphazard sampling, which involves choosing items arbitrarily without following a strict pattern. This is often used for initial assessments or when a population being audited is fairly uniform, allowing for a quick overview without a detailed plan. Both techniques have their own strengths depending on the audit context. When it comes to audit sampling, there are several important tips and common pitfalls we need to keep in mind. First, it's crucial to avoid selection bias by strictly following the defined sampling methods. This ensures our sample truly represents the population and our conclusions are reliable. Second, thorough documentation is key. We need to clearly record the rationale behind our sampling choices, the procedures we used, and the results we obtained. This not only supports transparency, but also strengthens the audit's credibility. Cost management is another important consideration. We have to strike a balance between the size of our sample and the level of audit risk we can accept so that we don't overspend while maintaining quality. One of the most common mistakes is using inadequate sample sizes, which can jeopardize the reliability of our findings. Also, addressing sampling risk is vital. Ignoring this can directly impact the overall audit quality. Finally, we must not forget non-sampling risks. Neglecting these can also undermine the integrity of the audit, so it's essential to consider all potential risks throughout the process.